Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com, and this is just a little tutorial in which I'm going to put this ball in the center of the screen to start off with, and I'm going to randomize the direction of it. So this should be pretty simple. To position the ball, we can use the same technique that we used for the bat here. So if I let's just comment out that log D actually. So if I go into my ball class here and I right click and I go to source override implement methods, we can override the init method from sprite, and I'll call the superclass method. And now we've got access to the size of the ball bitmap and the size of the screen. So I can say set x, and set x will be get screen height over 2 minus get rect dot center x. No, that's wrong, isn't it? It should be get screen width over 2 minus get rect dot center x. So same logic as for the bat. We this in itself will position the top left hand corner in the center of the screen, and then we need to subtract half the width of the graphic to actually get the center in the center of the screen. And of course for y it's pretty much the same. So I'm going to say set y get screen height over 2 and get rect dot minus get rect dot center y. That should put the ball directly in the center of the screen. And to set the direction of it, I'd like to set the direction randomly to start with, because at the moment I'm setting it to 1. And in fact, let's just go to sprite and take out these initial values for the coordinate, and I'll put them to 0. And so it should be pretty obvious if the user of these classes, which is me in this case, forgets to set the position of them. And I don't want to initialize the direction to 1. Actually, in fact, come to think of it, in sprite.java we don't even need to do that, because because instance variables are initialized anyway by default, so they would be 0 if left to themselves. So let's just leave them. Now I won't initialize the directions, so they will be set to 0 by themselves, but the direction should be either 1 or minus 1. And for x, 1 would mean heading to the right, and minus 1 would mean heading to the left. And we use it down here to multiply the speed and the time elapsed to actually get the final direction. So all the directions do is say whether the direction is kind of in a direction of the increasing coordinate value or decreasing. So the direction should be either minus 1 or 1. And the question is, how can we get a random, how can we either get 1 or minus 1 at random? And to do that we can use the random class. So in ball here, now where would a good place for this be? I can do this on the constructor, I suppose. So I don't really need to do it in init, but actually init is a perfectly good place as well. So let's do it there. Let's say random equals new random. This is a built-in Java class, which we can also use, of course, in Android. And I'm going to say that direction x equals random.nextInt. And random has this method nextInt, which it can take an integer, and we're going to pass it 2, and it will give you a random integer up to but not including that value. So if you say nextInt 3, let's say, you'll get 3 random values. You know, it could be the random value will be one of 3 possible values, 0, 1 or 2. So if we pass it 2, we'll get one of 2 possible random values, which will be 0 or 1. If we multiply that by 2, the random values will now be 0 or 2, because 0 times 2 is still 0, and 1 times 2 is 2. And if we then subtract 1, that maps 0 and 2 to minus 1 and 1. So this gives us exactly what we want. This will give us either minus 1 or plus 1. And I'll do the same thing with y. and direction y equals another random number, either -1 or +1, and that should be it. So I'll just run this, and now the ball should appear initially in the center of the screen, and it should have a random direction. Let's try to go really quickly to the screencast, so hopefully we can catch it starting up, and it hopefully will be on its way. And while we're waiting for that, let me tell you what I'm thinking of doing next, which is it would be quite good if we make the player's bat, be controllable by touching the screen. So probably we'll do that next. So there we go. The ball seemed to be in the center of the screen, and we'll take it for granted that the random direction worked, although you could start it up a few times if you want to check that, and you'll see that sometimes it's going to the left, sometimes to the right, and sometimes up and sometimes down. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial, and until next time, happy coding.